We're back. Episode 42, Discipline to Win, here with Nick Frazetta. Today, we're going to talk about 5 things that we wish we would have done differently when we started our businesses. Nick and I, I'm sure we'll have some different perspectives because we've, got started in this at different times. But I will start it off here. The number one thing that I would change or do differently in the beginning is making sure that if you are going into business with other people, make sure very, very early on, you make sure that you have the exact same objectives, timelines, risk tolerances. It's almost like going into a marriage. It's actually more final than a marriage, basically. And you have to make sure that you align closely on those things, because just like a marriage, if somebody has different desires, different wishes of what they want out of life, in a business, if somebody has different desires or wishes of what they want out of that business, it's going to create friction. There's going to be conflict, and it's going to be a push and pull as far as like what you're trying to do. So, you saw it like from your perspective as well.
Definitely. And I think we're fortunate that early on in the business, we were able to kind of correct that, and we were able to align ourselves with each other as well as our additional partners that have now come into the firm. And we take that very seriously. Now, any partner that's going to be joining at this point, obviously, they have to be adding significant amounts of value to the firm, and they have to be bringing that value. But at the beginning, totally, and I'm sure a multitude of people run into it. A lot of times people are like, hey, I want to start a business with my friend. And you may have a great relationship with that friend, again, as a friend, in your personal life. But when you have a relationship in business, it is completely different. And similar to what you said about a marriage, it's like checking those boxes. Like when you're really going to make a decision of getting married to a girl, like, does this align not only today, not only the next year, not only the next 5 years, but like, do we align for life? Because majority of the business you're going to get into, they are going to last 20 plus years or your entire life in multiple generations. So that's very, very important, I think, that you identify that early. And I think we were fortunate that even though maybe we didn't identify that early, we were able to kind of make it right.
Yeah, it was like really easy. Like, it's almost like sometimes too, in like certain business situations, like you honestly don't have the choice right off the rip too, and you just get like put in a situation, you see an opportunity, you got to take what you can get to. So like, I don't want people to think like, almost like some people just never get married because they never find the perfect person. I don't want everyone to think about this too from a standpoint of like, I'm a total proponent of partners and partnerships in businesses, and I think you're always better with multiple people than alone. So I think if you're looking for like the perfect business partner and you haven't found that perfect person, you should still try to find somebody, because I think you're going to be way better off from just resources, capital, output,
no doubt,
ideas, perspective, point of view, so much upside to it. But I think we were fortunate enough to where like early on, before we became business partners, we got to spend so much time together to where I got to basically, share what I wanted, and you got to make a decision of like, do I align with that? Do I have the same objectives, the same goals? So like, I'll say that like you and I went into business together pretty much eyes wide open of like very clear objectives, what we both wanted out of this, timelines, etc. So, and like we talk about it like every day. So I think just like in marriages, if you don't talk about, what you think about things, like honesty, like opinions, like what you want out of it, it's the same in business. I think you got to just like constantly be evaluating, letting people know like where you're at, like what you think about things, and not be afraid to be honest about everything. And I think like communication in business is just as important, if not more so, than like a relationship.
Completely agree. So number 2, the second thing that, at least on my end, that I would say would have changed at the beginning is, even if you do not have that much money at the beginning, spend the money to hire quality people who have experience. And we ran into that honestly, it took us a little bit of time to kind of figure that out.
There was a good 18 months of
a lot of turnover. And we really thought that we were going to be able to find people that had zero experience at a very low salary and develop them. And the problem with that is one, it's very difficult to find people who have drive in the first place. Even people who have experience, it's very hard to find drive. And at
most people who have experience have no drive.
Exactly. At the beginning, when you're building something, your most valuable asset or I should say your employee's most valuable asset is effort. If you have someone that's positive and can give effort at the beginning, that usually is going to move you along at least to a certain point. Now, once you start getting into the higher levels, you're going to need high level skill, high level expertise, no doubt. Starting there is what I believe is a much easier journey than trying to grind it out and find the people that have no experience and you're hiring on low salary, than going out, really spending time in the due diligence process. Like we used to always say we'd hire out of positions of weakness, where we would get all this new business and then panic and like, oh my goodness, we need somebody else to fill this role, and then panic hire somebody in like a week and not go through a true interview process, not really try to understand if their objectives aligned with what our vision was. And on top of that, it was like, okay, let's go try to find the cheapest person we can possibly find to fill this role. So the number two thing, I think it's better off that you go pay somebody $100,000 that really knows what they're doing than hiring 3 people at $35,000 a year and really getting expert level knowledge, because that expert level knowledge early and somebody who aligns with your vision and your goals is going to take you a lot further than just turning over $35,000, $40,000 employees all day long. You're going to spin your wheels doing that.
I'll say, and I don't want this to turn into a regret list, but number 3 for me would definitely be having a little bit more vision from a standpoint of knowing that in the beginning, when you have 4 or 5 employees, like they truly are like as close as family at that point, because you're just with all of them all day long. So you just like your family, you want to like treat them very well, take care of them. So like in the beginning, I would say I was way too, I'll call it generous with just like tons of bonuses, like, you know, making it almost like extremely unrealistic expectations going like long term.
Buying people custom suits when they
like there's like anyone that would be here for like more than like a month, I'd be like buying a like $2,000 custom suit. And there were some people that we fired before their custom suit even came in, to where like it like learned the lesson the hard way there of like, realize that anything you do at any point in the journey, like the people that stick around that were there for that point, you're going to have to change. Like there's no company in America at any scale that can just like willy-nilly, you know, writing out checks to people, buying people things all the time. Because in the beginning, when it's just like maybe you and one other person in ownership, like cool, like whatever, like it's your money, like go ahead and do that. But like as you grow and grow and grow and you have, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 shareholders, there's going to be a lot of people who are like, hey, like, you know, what the hell is this? Like there's $50,000 that just went out for like XYZ. Like that's technically like a portion of that is, you know, quote unquote their money. So like I definitely in the very beginning didn't have the foresight of like, hey, like how is this going to impact when you have a 50-person organization, to where the 10 people that were there in the beginning that got used to that unrealistic expectation and now might feel a certain type of way when you have to dial that back, because you can't just do that forever. So I would say, even though you might have 2 employees or 3 employees or 5 employees, you've got to think way ahead. It's your job as the leader to think 5, 10 years into the future and take actions that you're going to be happy you made 5 years down the road. Like, and we're now I think we're doing a way better job at that now, to where we're making decisions today that are unpopular decisions with the team today, but we've learned that it only gets worse the longer you drag stuff on, to where we know that if it's a certain policy that has to be put in place that's going to be unpopular, but we know it's the right thing for the company, rip the Band-Aid and do it right now, because you'll thank yourself when you had twice as many people 2 years later, to where it would have been an even bigger deal. Like it's never going to be a, you know, less of a deal than what it is today. So you might as well just rip the Band-Aid and get it out the way. But definitely I say, when you're making decisions from a employee compensation, rewards, incentive standpoint, don't think about the team that you have today. Think about how that's going to impact when the team's 5x, 10x bigger down the road.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And my 4th one actually coincides with exactly what you're saying, except it has to do with your internal systems and operations, where try to build your business again based on where you are going, not where you are at that moment. Now, there are no doubt some things from a company that does $10 million in revenue to a $250 million revenue company, you can't have the same systems and
No.
operations because there's different things of one, like you don't have the money to build those, but think about your business in a way of, let's say you're a $1 million company, you can think about it as a $10 million company of like how your systems and your operations should work. So put processes in place from the beginning that you like think to yourself, is this process going to work with 50 people? Is this process going to work if I have from 200 customers to 1,000 customers? Will this process work? I think a little bit at the beginning was we would make processes and systems for that very moment,
for that month's initiative,
for literally whatever we were doing that month
stuff,
of like, okay, we're just gonna like get through this and then we'll get to the next month. Now,
how many Excel sheets?
Oh my goodness, so many Excel sheets and so many different ways of tracking things and so many different ways of communicating with clients and different ways of doing task management.
Yep.
And it was really just, there's definitely a component. There's no storybook to like, how do you build a business? You do have to figure it out. So like, it's not going to be perfect, but one piece of advice that I would give anybody who's starting is really think about it as like, don't think about it as you doing $250,000 of revenue. Like think about it from you doing $1 million of revenue. And then from there, like think about it from you doing $5 million of revenue. Like, will this communication method work? This system work? This CRM work? Like, and if you can find a balance of like, yes, this is going to be a little bit more of an upfront investment, but I can get away with affording it. And it may not make the biggest difference right now, but I know as I 3X, it's going to make a huge difference. Do that on the upfront because it will save you hundreds and hundreds of hours of time than trying to have to rework it every quarter as you're continuing.
It only gets, the deeper you get into anything,
it gets harder.
Yeah. The deeper you get into growth, it just gets harder and harder.
Yeah. It gets harder.
And I can say you brought up a good point. Like just because you're $1 million revenue company does not mean you can't think like a $10 million revenue company. And looking back, when we were $1 million company, $2 million company, we did not think like a $10 million company. We thought like a $2 million company. And I'm sure that's probably what most people fall into because it's starting at a couple 100,000 and then getting to $1 million. You think that you're doing something incredible. And then you get to 2 million and you're like, because everyone surrounding you is telling you like, oh my gosh, like, how did you do this? That's so crazy. So you like listen and believe what people are telling you to think that you're successful to where like, then you're kind of living in the moment and you have to really have like a look in the mirror of what do you want? Because to get to 10 is totally different story than what got you to 2. You get to 2 on your own back.
Yeah. You can get to 2 just by straight effort. I mean, and I honestly
you don't need any systems to get to $2 million.
No, you can get to $2 million just literally from straight sales and effort.
Yep.
But like now we're in the game where we're crossed $10 million worth of revenue. And again, people always come to us and they're like, oh, what you guys are doing is so great and so admirable. And like we look at each other and we're like, we're nobody.
We are at a way different thought process now of like we've
correct.
Yeah.
And I think we're thinking like now we think like
200 million.
We're going to be a 100 to $200 million revenue company. What do we need to do to build to that? But like I like back 2 years ago when we were doing like $2 million in revenue, I thought, and I think we thought we're like, oh, well, we're this like big bad company that's going to like take over the world. And now we're this $10 million company. And I look around,
realize we're nobody's
real competition is, and it's like, we're literally this small fish. Like we are nobody. And that's what like obviously drives us every day is like, we're like, people will say these things or we're known in our little town, but like we're nobodies. Like nobody knows who we are. And we're not doing anything that special. Like the people who are doing, like once you get 100+ million, there's not many companies that are doing 100+ million in revenue. Like you get there, no doubt. Like you're
even just getting 10, extremely small
10 is
percent of
hard.
companies. Yeah, it's some crazy stat. It's got to be like close to 90% of small business in America never even breaks $1 million.
Yeah, and 10 million, it's definitely very difficult to get to, and getting to 50 will be even harder, and then going from a 50 to 100 will be even harder than that, and that's just the game that it is.
Because there's different challenges at every level.
Yeah, but I guess just going back to like summarize my fourth point, like just think like a 5 to 10x above where you are with what you're doing internally, and try as hard as you can with the resources that you do have at that period of time to build your systems around what are you going to be, not what you are.
Yep. I would say for my fifth and final point that I would reframe the structure of how we grew our team from a standpoint of, in a perfect world, and this was our objective from the very beginning, you can, because obviously in the beginning, okay, you have one or two leaders and that's all you need and you're managing everything, but you need more and more and more leaders as you get bigger. And in a perfect world, you can develop everybody internally and everybody is going to go from promotion to promotion to promotion to promotion. And like, everyone you started with in a perfect world is like sitting in the C-suite, but that's not reality.
Yeah.
Most people cannot. It's already impressive enough for people to go, in a short period of time from 1 to 2 to 3 like levels of responsibility. To ask them to continue that for 15 years is pretty unreasonable. Not many people can do that. And I think we realized that late in our 5.5-year journey of, I wish we would have, again, hindsight's 2020, because in the beginning you think you can afford it, but to your point earlier, definitely should spend more on higher level people earlier.
1000%.
And I think knowing what we know now, instead of trying to hire people and then develop, I would have did it a little bit differently and just started with more like extremely high quality A+ people in the beginning, that we can frame the leadership first before then we build out like the masses. We kind of build out the masses and then try to bring in leadership, from outside the org at that point. And I don't know, like we've pretty much fell flat on our face with most outside leadership we then brought in, because I think like the people that have been there from the beginning, you developed a certain way, and then you try to like bring in people from external that were developed a totally different way, and you want them to try to adapt to your machine that you've built. It's very difficult. I think we should have flip-flopped it. And again, hindsight's 2020.
You look at the best, in my opinion, the best example of a group of individuals that did it, and this is just from my knowledge, but the PayPal mafia of the group of guys who made PayPal. Because you look at those, I believe it was 9 or 10 individuals, and every single one of them went on to build a multi-billion-dollar tech organization.
After they sold
PayPal. And now that was literally the forefront of like, they gathered the smartest software engineers that they could get, and guys in finance and guys who had different backgrounds and all these different things, but they were all like extremely motivated. They all had the same vision, and they wanted to build something great. And they were, but these guys were all high level individuals. Like they could have gone to any single firm and gotten top dollar anywhere, but they decided like, hey, let's like come together, probably take a lot less pay at the beginning and try to build something great. That's like the perfect example of, in a perfect world, if you can do that, if you can gather like a group of like a handful of really lethal individuals that like, hey, let's say you're graduating college and you went to prestigious university and all your friends are like, okay, we want to go into banking, but you have you and your friends have this way of like, but like we want to create something that's like bigger than just going and getting a banking job, making $250,000 a year or something like that. Like that's like the type of like group that's formed of like finding other individuals that has like that drive to go do something bigger that maybe is going to take a little bit longer. Like it's not going to be the fast money, but like in the end, like you go and build something great. So I think that's like, to your point, that's spot on.
Yeah, and hindsight's 2020, which is why I feel like this is a super valuable episode of learn from other people. And again, in the beginning, I'll say I became aware of successful 9-figure, 10-figure entrepreneurs years into all of this. Like in the beginning, I wasn't looking at it. If you like go from absolutely nothing and you like figure out how to make $1 million, you like tell yourself for a short period of time that you're like the smartest person in the world, and like your parents are telling you that, everyone's telling you that. So it's very easy to not look external to see what else is going on out there. So I'll say that if you find yourself at the beginning, definitely try to learn from people that have paid the tax, the dumb tax or the mistake tax already, which, we've paid at this point and we're still paying every day and learning. I feel though, like constant learning, constant improvement, constant evaluation, and then trying to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes twice and that you're more aware so that when you face future problems a few years from now, you're not going to fall into the same trap. And I think now, like everything we do, how is this going to impact us 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And you got to be that aware and look that far forward. So listen to us, don't. But I would highly suggest you do, because we've been through that, done a lot of things, tried a lot of things, and we're still trying new things every day and learning along the way. But until next time, stay disciplined.